Welcome to Inside the Thunder. I'm KD Hudnall, and on this show, I go one-on-one with some of the most recognizable names in Marshall athletics history. He played for Marshall from 1999 to 2003, amassing a 51-13 overall record with multiple MAC championships and multiple bowl wins. He played guard, tackle, and center during his time with the Herd, making him one of the most versatile offensive linemen of the era. And he was part of one of the most legendary plays in Herd history as being one of the offensive linemen to carry Byron Leftwich down the field in that game against Akron in 2002. Today, we're going inside the Thunder with Warfield, Kentucky's own Joey Stepp. Thanks for downloading another episode of Inside the Thunder. I'm your host, KD Hudnall, and joining me this week is none other than former Herd offensive lineman Joey Stepp. Joey is a very interesting former Herd athlete, as we will find out, you will find out much later, considering where the path of life has taken him, right? It's not what I would consider, I don't know how to describe it. I'll let you describe it later on. But it's just a very cool story. And by and large, we've learned that our athletes are full of great stories. So before, right out of the gate, I got to say thanks for taking some time this evening and fitting me into your really busy schedule and doing this episode of Inside the Thunder.
I appreciate you having me. Been ever since we talked about it at the alumni weekend. I've been looking forward to it.
Good. I'm glad. That always makes me feel good that folks are actually not only saying, yeah, I'll do that, but then there's a little bit of excitement and and a little bit of looking forward to it. So this is good. This is going to be fun. And if for the fans that watch these episodes, you know where we start. And it always is best to start at the very beginning. And I love talking about how guys find themselves at Marshall, because we have athletes from all over the country and all over the world nowadays, depending on what sport we're talking about. So what's your recruiting story? How did you end up at Marshall University?
I wasn't. I was one of the. You've seen Varsity Blues, the movie Varsity Blues. That was a documentary of my high school years. I stayed by myself a lot. My mom and dad divorced. Dad let me stay alone a lot in a big house, and we threw big parties. The Kentucky Sweet 16 basketball tournament. I'm from Kentucky. Kentucky's basketball tournament is all the high schools in the state. There's a Sweet 16. It's the best 16 schools. There's not a single A, double A. It's all there's classes, but they all play against one another for a state championship, and it's at Rupp Arena. So me and all my boys rented a room at Rupp Arena, and we were partying. I'm an 18-year-old senior, chasing this college dream, but I was making an absolute fool of myself in Lexington, and drinking, doing whatever. And all the coaches that were at Rupp Arena to watch the basketball tournament called my high school coach and said, "Hey, you've got to get your boy out of Lexington." I was being recruited by UK. I had one or two Division I offers that I learned about after I decided to walk on to Marshall and just decided to chase my dream at Marshall. But I had a lot of small school offers. But at this time, I still had no clue where I was going to go. And my high school coach got a hold of my dad, who got a hold of me. And again, this is before cell phones. Called the room, called the front desk, got a hold of me. He's like, "Hey, Coach Matt," he was my high school coach. He said, "He's got a visit with you tomorrow with Marshall." I said, "Okay, what? But Dad, I'm in Lexington for 3 days. We're down here watching the basketball tournament." He's like, "Yeah, but I think you need to go talk to this Bob Pruitt guy. He's going to give you a fair shot." So I drove from Lexington to Huntington, met my coach and my dad, and walked in during a spring practice. The first person I ever met was Irv Dotson. He's a big old offensive lineman from Belfry, Kentucky. I grew up in Eastern Kentucky, so close to Belfry, close to where J.R. Van Hoos is from, Painesville. Met him on the practice field. It was about 6:30, 7 o'clock in the morning, freezing cold, and sometime in April, I think. And we went into Coach Pruitt's office, and Coach Pruitt looked at me and said, "Son, I'm sorry, I don't have a scholarship for you, but you can be an invited walk-on." And he stood up, and he reaches around behind him, and he pulls out a national championship ring, and he lays it on the table. And it's me and my coal mining daddy and my football coach. He has a Coca-Cola cooler behind him. He turns around, opens the Coca-Cola cooler, reaches in, pulls out another national championship ring and lays it down. And then he finds all around the office, he's finding all these championship rings, and he gets deals. He lays them down. He says, son, he says, I don't have a scholarship for you, but I promise you one thing. He says, you come here, I'm going to turn you into a man, and we're going to win some ball games. And I promise you, you'll get a degree. And of course, all I heard was, you're not getting a scholarship.
Right.
I quit listening. We walked to my car, and my football coach, the only reason I met Coach Pruitt was because my football coach was trying to get me out of Lexington. He did not ask for me to come to Marshall. He didn't recruit me. My coach called him and said, hey, I want you to meet my boy, because he had to get me out of Lexington. We go to the parking lot, and in the parking lot, my dad knew that I was going back to Lexington. And my coach thought that my dad was going to ride with me back home. And I said, all right, you guys be careful, Dad. I'll see you in a couple of days. And my coach yelled and cussed. He's like, what are you doing? And I was like, I'm going to go back to Lexington. He's like, you can't go back to Lexington. I was like, Coach, I got a hotel room for the next 2 days. And so he lectured my dad about being a better parent the whole way home. But when I talked to my dad, and my dad, it's so funny. Like, I'm real big on inspirational stuff. And I got a plaque. It says, thanks, Daddy. I'll have to move my camera around. But it's the article talking about how I got to Marshall, the story that I'm telling you that the Herald Dispatch did. Mm-hmm. But I got home 2-3 days later. We sat down and talked. I had a scholarship to EKU, Appy State, and this is before they were Division I. Gardner Webb wanted me to come and wrestle. And my dad said, son, I really like what Coach Pruitt said, and you've always dreamed of playing Division I ball. Won't you chase your dream? And I said, Dad, the whole purpose of me playing ball, in my mind, I thought playing ball was the only opportunity I was going to have to get a degree, get a job. Mm-hmm. And I said, Dad, it doesn't make sense to pay for school. We don't have the money. We don't do this. And Dad said, well, I'll find a way to pay it. And this is just being ignorant. I had not filled out anything about student loans. I haven't filled out the FAFSA. I did fill out the I can't think of the name of it now, but clearinghouse, the NCAA clearinghouse paperwork. And my first semester at Marshall, we paid cash for it because I didn't have any student loans. And my dad went around town asking for loans for business people to give it to me so I could pay my tuition so I could be a walk-on. It took me 3 semesters to get a scholarship. Yeah, pretty cool.
Yeah, that is a very kind of Marshall-esque story. It's the walk-on that wins all the games and turns into one of the more winningest players in that era. There's a lot of guys that won a lot of games, and it kind of falls on when your freshman year was and when you ended to how many games you won, because there were just so many damn wins at that time.
There was a lot.
But that's a really, really, really interesting story, because I think a lot of guys would have, like you said, turned off after I don't have a scholarship for you, and you're exploring like, well, we've obviously got to go to school for free. That's the route. I thought that was the goal, right? I thought
that's the whole reason we're playing ball. Yeah,
right.
Everybody said you got to get a free education. You got a free
right.
Yeah.
And then that turns out that's not really the goal. And I'm gonna sidebar here for a second. If you for one moment think that it was Coach Pruitt accidentally finding rings all around the office, know he knew where every one of those things.
For sure, absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah, he knew exactly what he was pitching to you. But boy, was he right. Let me go down that. Boy, was he right. So do you? This is just another sidebar type question. Do you have any idea what your overall record was while you were there?
Oh gosh, I have no clue.
What years were you there? Let me go that route.
99 to 2003.
Well, hell, that's a great place to start.
We were undefeated. We won 4 MAC championships. Being a podcaster, you'll appreciate this. There was a year, Byron's senior year in 2002. We had lost like 4 games. Mm-hmm. And it was the most we lost, in 4 or 5 years. And we had a little team meeting between the offensive line and couple of us, and we were literally talking about, guys, we've lost more games this season than Pruitt's lost since he's been here. Mm-hmm. Like that's how many games we've won. I would have no clue. But I played as a walk-on. I didn't play in '99. I didn't play any, but of course I was on the team. And to anybody that's ever been a scout team player at a Division I level, you're part of the team. Like mm-hmm. you're as much of the team as anybody, because you're getting your butt kicked every day. Mm-hmm. But we won the MAC and the Motor City Bowl 2 years in a row, and then we won the GMC Bowl, and then we went to the GMC Bowl the next year and didn't win. No, we won it too. My senior year was the year we didn't go to a bowl game.
Okay. Yeah. So you were a part of some of the most memorable games and one of the, if not the most memorable season in 1999, the undefeated year, number 10 final AP poll ranking. Of course, I was an undergrad at that time too. And then you just in passing mentioned the GMAC Bowl. Yeah, that's a couple years later in '01, the epic comeback where you're down 38-8 against ECU in the second half before you start making the tremendous, unbelievable comeback. But yeah, I just didn't know if off the top of your head you knew that wins and losses
You
record. I
got
mean, I could find it pretty quick, but
you got to let me tell you about the GMC. I'm not going to tell you the halftime speech, but
well, okay, but wait, can I want to get to that because I feel
okay,
like this might answer a question that I'm going to ask you.
perfect.
But let's move. We talked about how you got there, which is a great story. So there's always a singular moment, and this might be really great for me because you said you weren't sold on Marshall. You tuned out after that. You kind of had to be talked in to going. So what was the singular moment that did sell you on Marshall? When did you know? Yeah, this is where I'm supposed to be.
When my dad told me that he wouldn't come to any of the games if I went to any other school,
Well,
he
that'll hit.
he literally and my dad was he's always been my biggest supporter as far as like supporting me in sports and business. And if I called him tomorrow, I was like, Dad, I'm going to open up a restaurant. There's no doubt. He's like, son, you can do anything. You can do anything you want. But we sat down one day and had a talk, and he said, son, he said, I want you to go to Marshall. I want you to chase this Division I dream. And he basically said, if you go anywhere else, I don't know how much I'll be at the game. I don't know if I can be all in. And once I started playing, my dad drove to Manhattan, Kansas to watch me play. Like my dad just being small country town guy who worked in the coal mines his whole life and was busy just grinding and making it work. He was at every game. He made sure he was in Gainesville. He was in Troy, Alabama. He made sure to make it to all the games.
Wow. So that's a serious, family style commitment, and I could see how that would kind of make your mind up for you. You know.
Well, and of course I've got two kids now. My dad believed in me at a level that I couldn't. I personally didn't believe in myself that much. I didn't think that I was going to make it as a walk on. And shoot, once I got there as a walk on, I called Dad. The 1999 team is the closest thing to the NFL roster that I've ever experienced.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm a walk on trying to get a scholarship amongst these guys. But he encouraged me to stick around.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's another common thread you mentioned as being a dad. I'm also a dad. And when you look at your children, I can relate to that. You say, well, I see more in you than you see in yourself right now.
Mm-hmm.
Trust me a little bit, right?
Yep.
Just trust me a little bit. So we mentioned that you've been a part of some big moments and some big games. Let's talk about some of those, or one of those in particular. What are some of those favorite moments that you think about with your playing time with the Herd? And to piggyback off of that, what is it that you're most proud of about your days playing for the Herd?
I'm going to answer it backwards.
Okay.
The thing that I'm most proud of is that I made it. And my story at Marshall, like, and nobody that plays college football has an easy story. And of course, Randy Moss, one of the best athletes to ever to put his feet on the ground on earth. Like he had things that he had to deal with that were hard. We all have a story, but just the fact that I walked on, I was actually told twice that I needed to transfer. We had a GA go to Southeast Missouri State, and he wanted to give me a full scholarship. And I said, I don't know where the hell Missouri is. And then had another guy leave, wanted me to come, was going to because I was a defensive lineman when I got to Marshall. They turned me into an offensive lineman. And he promised me that I could play any position that I wanted. And I was dead set that I was going to make it. Too many people told me I wasn't going to make it for me not to make it. I had a chip on my shoulder. Things like the standout things that happen, and I shared this with you at the reunion weekend. My favorite thing is running out of the tunnel at Virginia Tech. And I was crying so hard. I'm an emotional guy because my story, like, I like to say that I know what rock bottom feels like, and sometimes rock bottom has a basement. And the fact that people asked me to transfer, the fact that I was told I never graduate because of my learning disabilities, and I read on a very poor level. But when I was running out of the tunnel at Virginia Tech, it was so hype in that stadium that it was kind of like my I made it moment.
Mm-hmm.
And I got so overwhelmed and just crying happy tears that a trainer came up to check on me. Like someone told the trainer that I was like, having a panic attack, which I don't even think that was a word that we used back then. But she came up and checked on me, and I said, yeah, I'm fine. And again, once I got on the field, like everything, I kind of blacked out and everything was fine. But of course, the GMAC Bowl was electric coming back from halftime. And again, just these aren't amazing stories, but it's just the things that stick out of my head. Coach Pruitt basically kicked everybody out of the locker room. He came in, and Coach Pruitt, being the old man that he is, and of course he looks amazing now, but he's just so much older. Like, it's crazy to think about how old he was when I was a kid. He was yelling at everybody to get out of the locker room. He kicked out the assistant coaches. He kicked out the training staff. And he said, if you're not a starter, get the hell out, whatever his words were. Well, at this time in my career, I wasn't a starter always. I rotated. And I played about 35 to 45% of the snaps. And I played center guard. I played center guard and tackle. I was basically the backup for every position, which you don't hear about often. But it's just how I had to make myself valuable to get on the field. But at this time, I'm rotating with the center. About every 2 series, I'd go in for a series at center. Well, I'm not a starter. So I stood up because – and it's that you got coach yelling at you, and coach is on a pedestal, he's not standing on a pedestal, but I always put my coach, he's the authority figure. So I'm trying to listen to what coach says. And I stood up and started to walk to the door, and he saw me, and he basically horse collars me and throws me down in a locker. Do you not want to be a part of this damn team? And I was like the little kid in me was like, I didn't know what to do. And he's like, I'm so tired of people not, you got to give it your all. And I'm like, and in my mind, I'm like, coach, I'm the guy that does give it, I would take practice snaps with first team, second team, and third team because they needed somebody and nobody else wanted to put themselves through it. But he just yelled at me so much. And I'm like, I literally had no clue if I needed to stay or if I needed to go. But he kicked everybody else. There was 11 offensive players plus me. So there's 12 and 11 defensive players. And he kicked everybody else out, and he told us what he thought. I will give this tidbit of it. He told us not to quit on him, and he probably said, "Don't quit on me 100 times. If you get beat by 100 points, you get beat by 100 points, but don't quit on me." And then he said, if we quit on him, he'd cut every one of us. And it was one of the most powerful moments I've ever been in. Just a group of guys sitting listening to one man who's our leader, and you could just tell everybody locked in. Whether we were going to win or whether we were going to lose by 100, we were all locked in to play a good second half. And of course, the rest is history. Everything just fell our way. And then the last one I'll share, because I could go on forever. My senior year, and a lot of fans hate stories like this. My senior year, I was tired. Like, I was just really tired. Like, the season's long. Like, I had to work as a bartender to have enough money just to survive as a college kid. I didn't get much sleep. And we knew we were already out of the conference. We knew we wasn't going to get a play for a conference championship. And then all we were playing for was in the hopes of getting to a bowl game. And as a very tired senior who's been busting his butt for 5 years, in the back of my mind, I'm like, man, I just don't know if I want to go to a bowl game, be gone for a holiday again, and have to practice for 30 more days. But the last 2 games of that season, when nothing real, like, we were trying to win, but it really wasn't pressure, was the most fun 2 games I've ever played. And we were playing against Ohio University, Battle for the Bell. And me and Jason Rader just hooped and hollered and high-fived and chest bumped, and I would pancake somebody and look up, and Jason's there hyping me up. And we just had a lot of fun just being kids. And that it was very enjoyable to be, because, and again, fans don't understand, like, these kids aren't going out trying to drop passes. Like, they have a lot of pressure on themselves to make plays more than anybody will ever know. But at that point, I felt no pressure. I knew that my career is about to come to an end, and I ain't got to worry about being a starter next year, and just had a lot of fun.
So the double-edged sword of that is you were playing at a time where expectations were unbelievably high, right, and it was championship or bust.
Yes.
So when you finally get that moment and you're like, all right, we're out of contention for the MAC East, the championship is not going to happen this year.
Yep.
Was it a little bit of that too, that you're like, you know what the hell do we have to lose?
Yeah,
right?
It doesn't matter. Nothing. Wow. And again, like, the games leading up to it, we had to win these games to make sure we had a shot. And then once we didn't have a shot, and as a whole, as a team, we were still focused, locked in. Like the coaching staff, like nothing changed. We're still trying to win games, but as a player, it's like I'm still doing my job.
Yeah.
But in doing my job, like it's just more relaxed.
No, I'm not trying to insinuate that
I know.
people weren't playing 100%. What I'm saying is, you didn't have this thing looming over top of you, this pressure, and you could just like go play.
Yeah.
Nope. Did you find yourselves, I know you said you had more fun, but did it feel like as a team you were playing a little better because you were looser? Because like, did it feel that way?
I was. I can't speak for the team, but I was. And like I think as a whole, like in our meetings and just hanging out as players, like we were all more relaxed.
Yeah, interesting. I mean, you kind of think that, but again, we're talking about our program and our team. So that's easy to think about things in terms of that from a program or from a team that I don't really, I'm not connected to them. I'm connected to Marshall. So how things play out and how the DNA of certain teams evolve is very interesting to me, and especially at that particular time. That's my undergrad years, and by God, you just win. Just win. That's all you do.
And one of the worst things that happened to us my senior year was we beat Kansas State when they were number 6 in the country. Mm-hmm. Almost beat Tennessee. Should have beat Tennessee. Stan got hurt. I mean, we had a squad. Almost beat Tennessee. Came back, and now Darian Sproles wasn't playing. He was hurt at K-State. But the whole next week, that practice was the crappiest practice we ever had. And Coach Pruitt told us that we were going to lose. You guys think you're big stuff because let's say I was 21-year-old college kid who just knocked off the number 6 team in the country. Like, shoot, we're top 6 team in the country.
Nobody can tell you anything at that point, right?
And then going into practice, like coaches yelling at us, like coaches, like it just everything was like we all, I guess the term is we were all walking around with a big head. And Troy back then they were Troy State or Troy. I don't know which one they were, but DeMarcus Ware played for him. He was an animal. But they absolutely crushed us. They absolutely crushed us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they came in, and was that the away game?
Yeah,
or the one.
Okay. It was there.
Yeah, they were a good team, but of course, we're a MAC team playing either one and dones to open the season or regional teams, and Troy wasn't on anybody's radar. Now we share a conference with them, and we kind of know what they're all about more so now.
Just what you said too. Like we got really lucky back in the day that we wasn't on anybody's radar. When Chad beat Clemson and they beat South Carolina the year before, like we were the small schools. Teams had us for their get ready game for bigger games, and they didn't realize what they were getting into. Now with the internet, everybody knows. Like if you a college kid can look up Marshall's record and realize, like, wow, these guys have been some dogs for the last 20 years.
Right, and on top of that, you've got 20 years worth of YouTube highlights, and you can, and they're there the next day or an hour later, and you're not sneaking up on anybody now.
No, not anymore.
I mean, it happens from time to time. A couple of years ago, we go to Notre Dame, they pay us zero attention, and we beat them in South Bend. So it still happens, but just to your point, what happens the very next week? You go to Bowling Green and you get beat at Bowling Green. So it still happens. That's I hate to say it, that has happened seemingly as long as I've been a Herd fan. Big win and then a little letdown.
It's because and people get mad at me too when I'm on the internet and stuff, and I call them kids. Like I was a kid when I was 18 to 21 years old. I was not a mature adult. Like I was an adult, but I was very immature. And I thought, like, I'm a college athlete and I'm making all this money running a bar. Like it was a problem. And they're young adults, but they're not professional athletes now. Of course, now I just opened up a can of worms. Like some of them are getting paid, but like here's the thing. Let's say it this way: if the Dallas Cowboys and the Pittsburgh Steelers played this Sunday at the Dome, is it going to be the same game that we see at one of their home stadiums? No, the atmosphere is different. Okay, so but they're professionals, and because they're paid to be professionals, they're going to play at a high level regardless of the emotion. Mm-hmm. Now, when you talk to college kids, like when we would go to Buffalo and play in front of 400 fans, it was the worst. Like Buffalo was the worst experience ever. Like you go from the Dome that's rocking with 22,000 to get to Buffalo, New York, where it's freezing cold, and they used to have the national track championship there, the collegiate track championship. The field was the football field and then a track and then the stands. So they were so far away from you, there was no energy. And I could almost have a conversation with my dad from the sidelines because there was no noise. It was hard to play in. It was hard to get excited,
Wow.
but
That's a hell of a vibe to try to create. We'll just bore them to death, and that's how we'll sneak up on them. We're going to have a bleacher out every week with these 400 fans. It'll just be the quietest environment ever.
Yep.
No, I know. And I'm not trying to dog Buffalo here, but, obviously you say it was no fun to go there. They took some real licks at the hands of the Herd in home games. I remember one time in particular we played them. I don't know if it was for a homecoming game, but Byron didn't see the second half because, we were up like 40-3 or something like that.
He had a chance to break one of Chad's records, and Coach Pruitt took him out. There was some drama in the locker room.
Oh,
yeah. Like I don't remember the exact details, but it was something about he could break a record, and Coach didn't want him to play the second half. And at Buffalo, we were playing at Buffalo. Jeff Edwards was a starting center in 2002. He was from Canova, and he hurt his neck and had to get taken to the hospital. This is when I first had my big string of starts right after my scholarship. And it was like third and sorry if you can hear my dogs. I've got 3 huge dogs.
Man, we're all family guys here. We have kids popping in, dogs. It's all good.
But it was like 3rd and 30, and we were winning by like 30 points. And Coach Pruitt called a trick play to get a first down, and we were booed the rest of the game. And I think the following year, because we were killing them, Coach Pruitt didn't want to run up to score with Byron in the game or something. But
that's one that sticks out. As a lot of games as a student run together, because you're a student and you're doing things that make things run together.
Right.
But that Buffalo game, Russ and we talk about all the time because it was like a video game playing out in real life right in front of my eyes.
Well, right? Byron was a cheat code. Like
before that term existed. Yes, he was. Yeah. I mean, I hate to. When I start talking about these teams, I hate to just start talking about the quarterbacks and stuff because I feel like that's all that anybody ever wants to talk about, But there were so many great players on those teams. Those linemen do not go underappreciated by me, both on the offensive and defensive side of the ball, because let's be honest, Joe, if you're not pass blocking, it doesn't matter how good your quarterback is. You've got to have time to throw the football, right?
Well, since you said that, I'm going to give us some props. So when Byron when Byron got hurt at Akron and we had to carry him down the field, he came back and played. Okay, he played with a broken shin, a fractured shin, whatever word they use now. Along that time, Jeff Edwards, the starting center, was hurt, and I was the starting center. And we played 4 games and never took a snap under center. And we went 4 games with a quarterback who was playing on one leg and never gave up a sack. With a quarterback who couldn't move, and we literally went shotgun every single play. And things like that, of course, it's the traditional offensive lineman don't get a that's a storybook thing as far as offensive lineman. But and not to mention we were playing 60 snaps a game. Yeah, we played a lot of offensive snaps, because we moved the ball down the field and scored touchdowns. But Steve Shulo, Steve Peretta, Luke Selmans, we were talking about walk-ons earlier. You was talking about all the walk-ons that Marshall's had that turned out to be good. Luke Selmans was a stud. He coached at Cabell Midland for a little bit. He's out in Corbin, Kentucky now. But just an animal. Just got so athletic. I joke with him all the time. If me and him both were 4 inches taller, we'd have had a better chance of going to the. We're both 6'2". I got lost in the huddle. My dad joked that he couldn't find me in the huddle because I was only 6'2". And then on the other side we had Steve Shulo, Nathan Repeek, I named Steve Peretta. And Luke, it's just unbelievable. Just unbelievable group of guys.
Yeah, and to think about that, of course, Shulo did a little time in the NFL, and 2 guys on that line along with you have turned into 2 of the finest coaches in the high school ranks in the region. I mean, Luke, you mentioned, was at Cabell Midland. Now he's in Corbin. So now it's 2 guys in the state of Kentucky that are fabulous high school football coaches.
I got to see them play against one another last year. I was hired to do a magic show in Lexington, and it was a random Friday. It was a Friday. It was a school assembly, and just by chance, I sent Nathan a text. I'm like, "Hey, you got a home game?" He's like, "Yeah, I'm playing against Luke. I'm on my way." So I drove out to Frederick Douglass. He has me speak to the team about every 2 or 3 years. So I got to see them play against one another, which was super awesome.
Yeah.
And again, I talk about all the time about John Elmore. kids want to talk about, I'm going to go pro. I'm going to go pro. If you look at people like John Elmore, who's not playing in the NBA, that's how hard it is.
Mm-hmm.
People like Nate McPeak that didn't go to the NFL, that shows how hard it is.
Mm-hmm.
Nate McPeak was probably one of the best offensive linemen I played with. But because he had some injuries and he had a surgery, they didn't. There's so many of us in the nation, they're not going to take a chance on Nate McPeak, who's had a back surgery, when they can get this guy from this school. You know, it's hard, man. It's real hard.
It's not only hard, not only like being really good is a prerequisite. You know, that's not the end of the equation. That's a prerequisite.
And then it's all the little things. It's all the little things they can find to set you apart. I'll never forget my pro day. They had me hold my hand up like this, and they measured me from my pinky to my thumb. And in my mind, I'm like, what the hell why does this matter?
Yeah.
You know, I work at a middle school, and my middle school kids all the time were like, Mr. Stepp, why didn't you go pro? And my joke is, I didn't look good enough in my underwear.
Yeah.
Because they literally had us standing in our girdle, and they walked around and took notes.
Right.
You know, I wasn't like Doug Legursky. I wasn't the big, strong Doug Legursky. Like I was strong. I was stronger than Doug Legursky when he first got there. He broke I had a bunch of records in the weight room before Doug Legursky was born. And then he came and broke all of them. But like Doug Legursky looked like a man child, and I was a little flabby. And they don't want flabby, you know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's measurables. Then and on top of all that, let's say you ace all that, you still have to find yourself in the right scenario and the right situation to be able to stick. Folks think, well, I won't say folks. It's like there's nothing wrong with dreaming, right? You should dream. If you're an athlete, you should absolutely dream. Whatever keeps the fire lit, but you got to understand, it ain't just being good. It ain't just having the right look. It ain't even about having all that put together. You still have to be in front of the right people that have a need for what you have. And
your team's got to be pretty good. My senior year, and this is crazy, and I've never said this publicly, I don't think. Of course, as a player, you're Googling yourself. You know, the internet first became a thing, and you could get online and search stuff. Mm-hmm. Well, top centers in the country, and I'd be like number 8. And I was like, all right, yeah, like I'm the 8th center in the country. We beat Kansas State, I'm like number 4. We get beat by Troy the next week, you can't find me.
Right.
and I'm still playing the same, you know.
Yeah.
And the truth was, like, I was good. I was average to maybe a little bit above average, but I was just a good kid that did everything right when he could. Mm-hmm. And looking back on it, like the NFL dream was not anything that I could accomplish, but it was fun to chase. But yeah, like I call my dad. I'm like, Dad, like I was on the list last week, but I'm not on the list anymore.
The list, the infamous list. Look, we have talked about a number of guys, and I love that you're bringing up teammates, and that's one of my favorite parts of these shows is when I can get you guys to open up a little bit and you start talking about your teammates a little bit. But there's always a couple, and I don't know who they are for you, whether they were on your side of the ball or you were going up against them. But there's always a couple, because everybody knows it takes a team, and I don't mean just to win. You had teammates that helped you succeed, that helped others succeed, that just made the team better. So who are some of those teammates that you just feel like they'll never get that full amount of credit that they deserve for what they contributed to your team? You know, like guys that showed up every single day and just did the freaking work.
There's God, I can't think of his last name, and we were workout partners. Well, and again, he was an NFL player, and his story is remarkable. And he got credit. He was a good enough player that got credit, but he doesn't get enough credit for my story, and I got to give him his flowers. But Jason Starkey, my freshman year, I lasted 3 practices. We had 1 3-a-day, and Coach Wilt turned me. I was the defensive lineman of the year in the state of Kentucky, and he kicked me off of defense, told me I was an offensive lineman. I was only an offensive lineman in high school because we needed one, and I didn't want to be an offensive lineman. And once I've never played center before, they turned me into being a center, and Starkey took me under his wing, taught me how to snap, taught me how to do this, taught me some ins and outs. And every day, and again, 1999, I'm going against Jardy Mercer. I'm going against Jimmy Parker. I'm going against, you know, if I'm on the outside, I'm going against Ron Puggy and Carlos Smith. Like I'm going against some like some absolute dogs. But every time I would do well in practice, Jason Starkey was a walk-on. At one time, Jason Starkey would scream, "Put him on scholarship! Why are we not putting him on scholarship?" And it is something that I will never forget. Give him a scholarship, coach. Give this kid a scholarship. And I didn't get a scholarship while Jason was there, but he was one of the first. Like once he found out that I was on scholarship, he was one of the first people to call me from the '99 team and be like, "Hey man, I knew you could make it." Gosh, I can't think of his last name, but Matt. What is Matt's last name? He's from Beckley. He played tight end. He I can't. This is my stroke brain. I told you, like, I had a stroke in October, and I sometimes I glitch. But there's a number of us. Jonathan Goddard was someone that people don't understand his story. He came in as a prop and had a battle to get eligible, and when you're a prop, like you're not part of the team, and you can't really associate with the team. You're not even supposed to have the same gear as the team. And of course, just grinding through that to get eligible to have the career he had. JT Rembert, everybody loves. He was just a great guy. He was a hard worker. I could name a million. I wish. I'm gonna find it in a minute. Even if we get off, and just me, being a nerd, I've got all of our programs back here on my bookshelf. But no, like if I was gonna talk about someone that needs credit, and not just credit like for how hard they work, but for me and my story, it's Jason Starkey. Just unbelievable guy. And two, like, and I'm gonna give myself flowers since we're on this, like, and people don't, no one, and it's such a good question that you asked. No one knows the back end of the stories. Like, no one knows that I ran, like, in one single practice, I did 3 practices because I ran first string, second string, and third string reps because somebody was hurt or somebody was out. I had to play center guard and tackle because we didn't have anybody. Like, we had players. We had 15 offensive linemen, but I could play left tackle better than any of the left tackles, and it got me on the field. Steve Shulo twisted his ankle at North Carolina, and I went in for like 3 plays against Julius Peppers until he could come back in. Same thing at University of Florida against Alex Brown. Now, I tackled Alex Brown every play. Like, I can't block Alex Brown. And in the huddle, me and Byron are laughing. He's like, "Don't worry, Stepp, I'm going to throw it real fast." Like, thanks, Byron. Like, that's exactly what
Appreciate
that. But I went, and again, these are just and for every time I tell my story, there's 14 other people, I bet. But, like, I went through Marshall and never missed a practice for 5 years. And it was because if I was not good enough to miss practice, because if I miss practice, someone else is going to do well and they're going to give my position away. Right. And I truly was scared to miss practice because I didn't want to lose what I worked for.
Yeah.
I stayed in the summer every time because and it was just one of those I had to. Like, I wasn't the guy. Like, I played ball with guys that could miss practice for 2 weeks and go out and just be studs. Like, I wasn't that guy. And then my mind, Brett Riffey, he was a long snapper who walked on a team that ended up getting a scholarship his last year, I think. Just one of my best friends. Like, and it's so fun that life comes full circle that he is living in Cincinnati, and he now is a regional manager over bookstores, and he's working on campus, and I get to see him, at least once a month, to where I didn't see him very often. I stay real close with Nathan McPeak, Luke, Steve Peretta, and Steve Shulo. We're Steve Peretta is the NYP New York police officer, but we're in a group chat, and literally, and this is one of the sad things, but it's something that keeps us fresh. Maybe I don't know the right word, but we kind of tell each other kind of like our health battles. Like, like today I text them, I had a CT scan. I had a follow-up CT scan last week, and the lady calls me about my appointment tomorrow, and it wasn't all great news. It wasn't terrible news, but it wasn't good news. And I'm just texting them, and of course we're texting one another back. Like, I don't miss playing the sport of football. I miss having to be in shape. Like, I do miss that. Like, like, you had to work out these days, but I miss the locker room and just being with the guys more than anything.
Yeah. I would be lying to you if I didn't tell you that that's the running theme with everybody that I talk to. Yeah. They say, the games were great. A lot of those run together. There are always going to be moments that I remember. There's always going to be specific times that I remember. But the things that are the most important to me are the times in the locker room when we were away from everybody else and we could just be buddies that were on a football team, or buddies that were on a basketball team. Like, that's the running theme. And of course, that's the stuff that we as fans don't know about. That's the stuff that you guys get to keep just for you, and I think that's pretty cool. So much of what you did do is out there for us to consume and for us to enjoy and for us to, hate the losses and champion the wins, but you still get something that's just for you,
For sure.
and it's that time. That I think that's pretty cool.
I've got to say his name. Matt Morris is the guy from Woodrow Wilson.
Okay.
And here's what's crazy about the way my brain works now with everything that I've had going on. I didn't even get to this picture. I saw a picture of Scott Wilkes, who was his buddy, and then I'm like, oh, Matt Morris. Matt Morris was an absolute animal in the weight room. If YouTube, me and him worked out together. He was a thin, probably 210-pound tight end, but the weight that he and I moved in a weight room, if YouTube was around, we could have broke the internet. It was really cool. And I'll never forget that bond. And anytime we're around one another, that's the first thing that comes up is like, you remember when we were lifting this much and everybody thinks that this is a big deal, but anyway, sorry.
let me get you to turn back the clock a little bit, and I want to put your mind into that time coming out of high school and maybe that freshman year a little bit too, because I love the recruiting story or lack thereof of what you were telling me. But now you're in the school system, right? And these are middle school kids, so they still have a little ways to go before some of them are making that type of decision. But think back to when you were coming out and you were going through the processes and you were being recruited here and visit there and talking to this coach about this. What advice would you give to your 18-year-old self about that process based on what you know now and how it turned out now? What would you tell yourself?
Unpopular opinion. Know that they're all telling you what they think you want to hear. Know that it's a dirty business, and I've always called it a dirty business. I don't know if dirty is the right word, but it is you have adult men and sometimes women who have a job and they have to win games to keep their job. And in order to keep their job, they have to convince young people, and in my word, I'm going to call them kids. They have to convince kids to choose this school over the 25 other schools that are looking at them. So, of course, the easy way is we're going to get you in here. We're going to get you to play. For me, it was, and this is just something that they told us that was a lie. They had in the Shuey building, there's now a wall in the Shuey building that's got all the helmets for all the NFL players. My freshman year, before I got there, my senior year, there was a display there, and it had an indoor practice facility and it had a new turf field. Had the Joan with a new turf field and had an indoor practice facility. And this is coming within the next year. We're putting all this into the football team. That came 6 years later. But they have to. It's a business, and it's just like me running a magic business. If someone calls me and tells me they need me to do a show for 1,000 people and they're going to pay me $2,000 on the phone, I'll be like, yeah, I've done shows for 1,000 people all the time. Well, no, maybe twice, but I'm going to sell myself to get this gig. But I would also tell myself to, God, I'd give myself a hug, and I tell myself that I can do it, and to believe that I can do it. And in my case, man, it was that you're smarter than you feel, and that college isn't going to be as hard as you think. It's going to be hard, but once you get the ball rolling, it's going to roll, and you're going to be okay. And then just go after it. Now, if I could have a redo, my career, my life at Marshall is who I am. It's all my stuff in the back. I'm proud. I wake up every morning and proud to look at my jersey and there's, I don't know if you can see it. I don't know how big it is, but there's a picture on the bottom of my jersey. That's me as a player. That's, I think, my third year I was starting. And those are all kids from my hometown who are now 35 plus years old. If I'm 43, yeah, they're 35 plus years old. And they all came to see me.
Yeah.
And I only got that picture probably 2 years ago. A dad saw me in my hometown and was like, hey, I've been driving this around in my truck and I've been wanting to give it to you. I'm super grateful, super thankful. But if I could do it over, I'd have probably went to Eastern Kentucky where I was on full scholarship. And again, I gave Jason Starkey his flowers, but let's give Chad Pennington some. My freshman year, we talked before we turned on. Like when I was there, they didn't feed us every day. When I was there, you didn't have unlimited food. They fed us twice a day. We called it training table. And on Mondays and Tuesdays, they fed scholarship players only. And if you wasn't a scholarship player, you couldn't eat. So as a non-scholarship player, I would have to go across the street to McDonald's, across the street to Wendy's. Most of the time I went to the locker room and took a nap. And Chad Pennington and Doug Chapman ended up being one of my best friends while I was there. But Chad Pennington and Doug Chapman, those two guys, and again, star guys, we're not talking about average Joes. They would sneak me food down in the locker room to make sure that I ate dinner before we went out to practice. And again, like, God, I can cry thinking about it. But like stuff like that, I'll never forget. And then I got to share with this story about Doug Chapman. We were on a charter bus going after the Motor City Bowl in 1999 when we beat BYU. We're on the charter bus going to the airport, and Doug Chapman has the USA Today, and he opens it up. And I'm actually from Moorfield, but he always called it Inez because I think he knew a friend that was named Inez. He is 5 rows in front of me, and he's like, "Stepp, Inez is in the paper." And I got excited because, again, being not homesick, but I missed my hometown. And I'm like, they're in the paper. And I ran up. I didn't realize it was the USA Today, but it was Little League football players. And he was making fun of my school as being Little League football players. But anyway, it's just unbelievable. But I would have went and tried to be a big fish in a small pond, and to give myself, like, my time at Marshall was hard. And I wish that and not that I regret it, but I wish that I could have relaxed a little bit more than I was able to.
Yeah. I mean, it makes sense, right? Because you mentioned you're always on edge. I can't take a day off. I might lose my spot. I mean, there's a lot of anxiety that comes along with that,
Well, especially before you get your scholarship.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like you've actually got some stuff to lose here. I can't afford to take a breath or relax or take a play off, at least not in your mind. Maybe you could have, but at least in your mind, you could not.
My freshman year, and this is a big thing that you may not know that this has changed. My freshman year, we had freshman two-a-day camp. So freshmen reported before the varsity guys. Okay, so we literally had practice with, let's say, 23 players, and we're doing drills. And out of 8 offensive linemen, 2 were on scholarship. Those 2 never saw the field. Wow. But that still left 6 of us that were trying to get a scholarship, and you're trying to get that scholarship taken away to get, it was a lot of stress. Like it real quick, it became football's not fun anymore. Like, this is a full-time damn job. And one of the saddest things about my story is I was making enough money in the bar illegally. I wasn't allowed to make the money that I was making. But I think it's been long enough. They ain't gonna take coaches' wins.
There's no statute of limitations going on right now.
Right. I've got a story I got to tell you off air too. But I was making enough money that I truly could have quit and just paid cash for school. And not worry about being this college football player. Now, I'm glad that I didn't. But looking back on it, and of course, dealing with the brain issues that I'm dealing with now with, I had a stroke in October, and the scan that I had last week, they're telling me that they see that I've had another stroke that no one knew about, and some of it's caused from head trauma. But like, I didn't have to put myself through everything that I put myself through. I'm glad I didn't know that, because I probably wouldn't have. I'd have probably taken the easy way out. I'd have probably just said, screw it, and who knows where life would be, if I didn't get to finish out my career. So I'm blessed the way that it happened, but I would have done some things differently. I'd have taken a different path.
I can understand that. And, we all like to think that everything is just sunshine and rainbows for guys that come in and play, because we sit in the stands and watch the results of the practices, and that's what we see. So we love to think that, man, you guys are living the dream. It's all awesome, and there's no downside. But I know that it's not all wonderful. I've talked to enough people across enough eras to know, hey, this shit's hard. Yep. It's not enjoyable all the time.
I go at it. Max Yates actually reaches out all the time. He was another guy on the 99 team that, and again, I'm a walk-on going against Max Yates and John Grace. I didn't think I had a chance to make it. But when his son transferred, a lot of people were giving his son a hard time on the internet. And I try not to go after people on Facebook because I run a business, but I'm not going to sit around and let them talk about a kid chasing their dream, playing big time ball.
Right.
And the amount of money he's making, and shoot, his car alone that they gave him a brand new Mercedes. Like, you can't be mad at a kid for chasing that dream. But my favorite is, well, these spoiled kids, but you have no clue how hard it is to go to and again, we're not, college sports isn't churning out doctors. Like, my degree would have paid me, the degree that I was in undergrad would have paid me $20,000 a year. it is a lot of work to earn a degree just to
Yeah.
make $20,000 a year.
Yeah. Yeah. No, and like I said before, I don't fault these kids for trying to get what they can get because the money's there right now.
Right.
It might not always be there. And I don't
Right.
mean for a particular kid. I mean the way it's there now.
Yep.
Something could happen to shift that and it could change. But I want to talk about some coaches that you've had. I'm sure you
Okay.
had plenty. And, we mentioned Coach Pruitt. And yeah, anybody that's ever heard anything from Coach Pruitt probably has their own Coach Pruitt-ism. Russ likes to say Russ's favorite is if you're scared, get a dog, right? That's so. Tell me if there are any of those coaches that still are in the back of your head and you catch them at a moment, you might be doing something in your daily life, but in the back of your head, you hear that coach say his ism, like, damn it, Stepp, whatever. What are those coach isms that still stick out to you?
I hope you can still hear me. I had to think
my
phone was about to die.
I
had to move. He passed away recently. Mark McHale, and I'm gonna be careful. And, like, I cried on you once. I'm gonna try not to do it again.
Mm-hmm.
So my freshman year as a walk-on, this is that whole transfer stuff. My freshman year as a walk-on, and Marty Galbraith was the offensive line coach in the 1999 team, and his son actually was the third-string quarterback, Steven.
Mm-hmm.
He left after my first year and went to NC State. Can't blame the guy for going to NC State. Probably made a little bit more money.
Mm-hmm.
But I just worked my entire ass off for a guy who just left, and there's a new coach coming in. The new coach knows nothing about me. So as a walk-on, I'm starting over. I'm absolutely starting over. It was one of the most upsetting times in my college life. But the new guy that came in came from Louisville, and his name was Mark McHale, and his claim to fame was that he recruited and signed Brett Favre to Southern Miss. He lied to the head coach and told the coach that he was going to play DB or something. Excuse me. But he came in, and I was one of the first guys that he met with. We had Steve Shula on the team. I don't think Jimmy Cabellas was still there, but we had two all-conference guys there. Nathan McPeak was a freshman, and he wanted to talk to me before talking to Steve Shula, who was a Playboy All-American. And his first question to me was, "Why didn't you come to Louisville?" He came from Louisville to Marshall. I said, "Coach, if I was going to walk on, I'm going to walk on an hour and a half away from home, not 4 hours from home." Mm-hmm. And he said, "Son, I called and offered you a full scholarship, but no one ever got back to me. Somehow the voicemail was missed." Okay, like he left it, and this is before text message and email. So he gave me my best shot of anybody because he knew there was something there. In my office, I have original papers. Every week he would give us a game plan, and it would have motivational quotes in it. And, like the one that he always said was a Vince Lombardi quote: "Winning isn't a something, it's an all-time thing. If you're going to wake up, put your shoes on, you're going to wake up, put your shoes on to win. You're not just going to go through the motions." But he's someone that I think about more than anybody. If you bring up Coach Pruitt, I think about how he he didn't know my name for the first 2 years. He called me Slick or Dog every time he saw me. But again, Coach Pruitt gave me a shot. He wanted me to have a shot. Coach McHale had to convince him. Bill Wilt was a defensive line coach. He something was wrong with his hair, and he had like a flat top, but he had like a skunk thing down his hair, and he he cussed. Every other word was a cuss word, literally every other word. And when he kicked me off of the defensive line, my third practice, he called me the fattest. It was something to the line that I was the most athletic, fattest white person, something that he's ever seen. And I said, "Coach, I don't know the offensive line coach." He said, "Introduce yourself." So I literally ran from one end zone to the next. It was like, "Hey, that coach down there says I'm an offensive lineman." And then this coach is yelling at me because he has too many offensive linemen. But Coach Wilt, we were at a game one time, and he was leading chapel. We would have chapel the night before a game, and he says GD while he's standing in front of a Bible talking to kids about with a message. And he was just one of the most intense guys ever. But and I could go on forever. One of my favorite things right now is Shannon Morrison, who is on our coaching staff. He was a GA when I was a player.
Mm-hmm.
And just remembering, like, I can picture him being a young GA and now he's, of course we're all adults now, and now he's a coach. Just proud of him for everything. I was a GA once, and I was not it is not an easy. That is not an easy way to go to get a job.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Shannon is a guy that we have a lot of respect for, because not only was he a great player with the Herd, but he's had several stints on the coaching staff.
Hmm.
And he would come here, and then he'll go, and he'll come back, and it seems like every time there's a spot for him, he will gladly take that spot to coach for the Herd. And that says something to me, man. It's like you really do love it. You have to not only you have to love the job, but you really have to love the place that like Marshall, to come back to it 3 and 4 times. You know what I mean? It's one thing to do it once, one thing to maybe do it twice. You come back 3-4 times, you really do love the place. I
think Coach Gibson is bought into our story. We've got a story unlike any other story. And I want to say too, a coach that doesn't get enough credit, and for some reason fans want to turn against him and not like him. Bill Legg was one of the most influential people in my life that I've ever met. Mm-hmm. I've never been around someone that treated people with respect the way he did, and he taught us things, and he did things that contributed so much. And of course, too, like when you're in a position of offense coordinator, or whatever, play caller, whatever he was, like you put your neck out there and it's going to get chopped off. But he was a big part of my life as a college athlete.
So that's interesting, because the question I was about to ask you is, who would you say at Marshall had the biggest impact on your life? Would you say it's Coach Legg?
No, I would say Mark McHale.
Okay.
It would be Mark McHale and the relationships that I made. Mark McHale and Coach Gale, Mark Gale. Mm-hmm. Those two sound really familiar. But Mark Gale, who recently retired probably 2-3 years ago, mm-hmm. Who, and again, I'm pretty public about my opinion, who should have been, when Coach Pruitt left, Mark Gale should have been given the head coaching job. And for whatever reason, he didn't get it. And they didn't give him the interim head coaching job. They gave it to Larry Keck, and it was a shame that Larry Keck didn't get hired as a head coach. And we brought in who did we bring in from Ohio State? Help me,
Coach Snyder.
Mark Snyder. But Mark McHale helped turn me into a man. And sometimes, like he was, my dad never played sports. I never had any sports influence. And I think I benefited from that, because what Coach said was right. In mm-hmm. high school, what my high school coach said, it was the word. There was nothing else to be said about it. But in college, Coach McHale, when he got to Marshall, he was someone that, like, I could sit down and have a talk with about life. I could sit down and talk, he was a huge influence. And then Mark Gale, who was on the coaching staff the whole time, he was a father figure to a lot of us. Like, he would put his arm around us and talk to us when he thought we needed it. I'll never forget when I was married. I was married, and she was pregnant. Was going to have my first kid. Found out it was a girl. He asked me if I was disappointed. I said no. I just hope that she's healthy. Like, I'm really worried about just the health issue. He says, well, if you were worried about it being a girl, let me tell you the best thing about girls. When they're teenagers, they're going to crawl on your lap and give you a hug. When your teenage boys are teenagers, they're not going to have anything to do with you. Mm-hmm. And he's just, I could call him right now and he's going to answer the phone. And then one more, Doc Holliday. And I didn't even play for Doc Holliday. In 2020, I was in the hospital for like 24 days with COVID. Literally almost died with COVID. And there was a stretch of about 5 days where Doc Holliday called me at 7:00 every evening. Mark Gale called me and said, Mark Gale calls, I'm in the hospital. They did a news story on me and everything, because they always like to tie anything with alumni players. And I answered the phone and was like, hey, Coach Gale. He's like, buddy, how are you? I said, I think I'm on the back end of it, Coach. But I learned I was in a car accident, went in diabetic shock, didn't know I was a diabetic. It was a whole mess, big story. And I was like, I think I'm doing okay. He goes, well, in about 10 minutes at 7:00, Doc Holliday's going to call you. I said, Coach, why is Doc Holliday calling me? Well, he's from Hurricane. I was in a hospital here in Hurricane. And he just wants to know if you need anything. Well, what do you talk to Doc Holliday about? Okay, you talk football, right? What else? I don't know him on any other level. And he had hired me multiple times to do my magic show for the team. The year that he only lost one game, he lost the last game of the season. Like, I told him that we lost to Western Kentucky, and I did a magic show for him. And in my magic show, I said, like, you don't look forward to any games, but Western Kentucky has just now became Division I, and those guys got a chip on their shoulders, and they're going to come after you. But he called me and I said, "Hey Doc," I said, "How's the team looking?" He said, "No, son." He said, "This is not a football conversation. What do you need and how can I help?" I said, "Well, Doc, I really don't need anything." He goes, "No, I'm not taking that for an answer." And the only thing that I really needed was bottled water because the tap water that they were giving me was making me sick. And his family in Hurricane made sure that I had water every day. And just good people, like good
Yeah.
people that didn't
Yeah.
owe me anything. But I've been lucky to have some very influential coaches and just men in my life.
Yeah. I think that's kind of the Marshall way. I'm the same way. I'm not an athlete. You know, we'll beat that drum until the end of time. I'm not an athlete. I really wasn't ever going to be a collegiate athlete, but that's part of my Marshall story as well. You find these great men that are either going to mentor you from an academic standpoint or from a life standpoint. It's a really special place, and I want to tie this message in before I talk about what you're up to now. You know, looking back to that event we were at just last weekend, they said, I heard so many guys talk about how it's special at Marshall because we're doing things like the event that we were both a part of there last Friday evening, and there were so many guys that say, I've got family members that are that played for another school, or I've got friends that played for another school, and they don't do things like that. We don't get together like this, and it's hard in this day and age when so many people see. They want to think of a school as a brand, and yeah, there are bigger brands out there maybe, but I don't know if there's anywhere that is truly like Marshall. It's Huntington and Marshall are forever entwined. Huntington is truly a college town. You mentioned that there is no story that's like ours. It's no story that's better than ours. And but like I was saying, that's very much my Marshall story as well. In a nutshell, we are just fortunate to be at a university or associated with the university where it truly is special. It's not like anywhere else. But now playing days are over. College days are over for both of us for a long, long time. I've been out for over 20 years now. I'm sure you're in the same boat as I am. So life takes us on different paths. And I mentioned in the intro, and you've kind of given it away a couple of times during the show, but I want to talk about the path that you took. You mentioned running a bar, and I know that contributed to the path that you're on now. So tell me and tell everybody what you do these days.
So currently I work 2 full-time jobs. I am a school counselor at Winfield Middle School, and it is the biggest blessing that I could ever ask for, to be able to work with and I say troubled youth, like I don't work with the straight A kids as much as I want to. Like there's just not enough time in a day to work with all the kids. But just to be, and I said this on WCZ last week, all young people are one caring adult away from being successful.
Mm-hmm.
My goal is just to be that for somebody. So I'm a school counselor, and then on the side, on my off days, on not even my off days, on every day, I'm a comedy magician. Sorry. And I do comedy magic shows anywhere from this month. I was at Stonewall Resort. I've been at Glade Springs Resort. I've got a show in 2 months at the Greenbrier. And these are huge, not huge conferences, but conferences of 100 to 200 people. And then I even go to people's living rooms and do comedy shows in their living rooms. I got hired by a professor at Marshall today, actually, that next month I'm going to be on campus in a room at the Student Center just doing a show for his department. And I have developed this very unique style that people like. And of course, being an athlete, and this is one of the biggest blessings about being an athlete, and being an athlete who had to always be on top of things and take advantage of every day and couldn't take days off because I was going to lose my position and that kind of stuff. I've developed a pretty good motivational speech to where people will hire me to do, make it light, funny, but also give it some type of motivational spin.
Mm-hmm.
They own the Wendy's right by the stadium. It is the Smith Family Restaurant Group. I did their conference at Glade Springs Resort this week. Just blessed, man. I do kids' birthday parties, not as much as I usually do, but I do I was at the Magic Island in Charleston, their Easter egg hunt, where there's about 1,000 people there. I was there doing magic, and I also do balloon animals because it's an easy way to make money for kids.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm an entertainer, and my new thing that I've started doing, I think last year was the first year. I'm about to have my 4th show, May 17th. I've rented out the Albany Theater in St. Albans. They give me a really good deal and work with me really well. And I bring in a comedian. I'm bringing 2 comedians and myself, and we put on a comedy show.
Nice.
The show's about an hour and a half. Tickets are $20 a piece. My first one that I ever did, I sold the place out at 100. It has 190 seats, and we had to bring in 25 extra folding chairs.
Nice.
And just fun. And now these are 18 and over shows. Like these are not bringing middle school kids to. But it gives me an opportunity to be, because the way I describe it is when I'm at Glade Springs and the CEO of a restaurant group has me, I have to be prim and proper.
Mm-hmm.
I can't say the F word. I can't accidentally say damn, and I can't actually do this. And I got to be a little bit more polished. Well, when I host a show, and I tell you that it's an adult comedy show, like you better believe that it is an adult. But no, just lucky, man. Like I'm, and I've always said that I'm the most blessed man on the planet. That I turned into a hobby. It was when I was a bartender at Marshall, and I was a football player at Marshall. I bartended to make money and started doing magic as just a fun way to interact with people. And that fun hobby turned into a business to where I could truly, if I didn't have a master's in school counseling, I could live a really good life just doing magic.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You know, now it would be stressful because you got insurance, and especially with my health. But I could probably make more money doing magic than I would working as a school counselor, but I wouldn't have benefits and I wouldn't have retirement. But I have a schedule to where I have summers off. My spring break, I did 11 shows. 11 shows is about a 2-month salary for me as a school employee. So I made in 1 week during my spring break when teachers are taking vacations, I made 2 months worth of money.
Yeah, I'm grinding a little bit.
No, absolutely. Yeah. Grinding a lot of bit. That's just what I do. Now I spend it as fast as I make it. Like I love to experience life.
I can dig it.
Just super lucky, man. Just super lucky.
So in the interesting kind of tie that we have, you know, you took something that became a hobby and turned it into something that you love to do, just like I did. You know, this was a hobby to me. It was a way for me to stay closer to our programs and talk about the herd, and look how it has evolved, right? And now all of a sudden there are people that, it's not all of a sudden, it took a lot of work, but
right.
You know, people listen and enjoy what I do, and they enjoy the conversations that Russ and I have on our normal show, and they enjoy these interviews with our former athletes and the stories that they bring. And I repeatedly say that I'm the luckiest fan in the Marshall fan base, and can't nobody tell me shit, because that's the truth.
Well, and you know more than most people, like people don't have a clue, like. And because I work in a school system, a lot of teachers are haters for content creators. Mm-hmm. Oh, it's great. You know, and again, like I'm going to say Mr. Beast because he's the one that kids always talk about. But it's so insane that he makes all that money to do nothing. No, it's a lot of work.
Oh, yeah, he's doing a lot of work.
And part of the reson why my phone's about to die, I have a decent following on TikTok, and I get gigs from TikTok. I went viral on TikTok twice. Plug my website. My website's joeystepp.com. My TikTok's Joey Stepp Magic. If you Google Joey Stepp, it all comes up. But I went viral on TikTok twice and had 2 videos get over 2 million views. Well, I never took advantage of the ball rolling because it's a lot of work.
Yeah.
But right before we got on, I was bored and I was waiting for you to give me the link because I'm always obsessed over being early. And here I'm staring at my phone. I'm like, well, I'm gonna make 2 TikTok videos and edit them. So that's why my battery's dying.
I got it. No, I wish that I could delve into that, but I'm like you. I have a full-time job, and we do what we can, and this is a lot of fun. And I try to not consider myself a content creator, because at the end of the day, this is a hell of a lot of fun. And I'm getting probably more enjoyment out of it than anybody, because I'm the lucky guy that gets to talk to you guys and our coaches and our, you know, I love that, man. And it could have been any one of 1,000, 10,000 herd fans that gets to do this, but I'm the lucky guy that gets to do it. And I know that I'm blessed, and I do not take that for granted. I'm glad we got to talk about. Now, I want to ask you one thing, though. I had heard that that magic turned into a thing because you were doing flair bartending. Is that how that happened?
Yes.
But that's what I was leading into. Like I said, you were running the bar, and I know that contributed because that's what I had heard.
So Brett Riffey, you met him at the alumni weekend.
Yeah.
Oh, me, Brett Riffey, and there's 2 kickers, Nick Kelly and Ben Lewis. We went to the movies one day. I was a bouncer at a bar, became a bartender, and as a bartender, like bartending was fun. Like I was making hella money. Like I was making more money than
I would love to have some of the money that went through my hands,
Sure.
like, and to go back to college sports, like I was taking kids out to eat and paying for their meals because their parents couldn't afford to give them money to go out to eat on.
Sure.
And I'm sorry, like fans can say what they want, but as a college athlete making money for the university, we have a right to have enough money to just be social.
Yeah, sure.
Like we really do. But my NIL money came from Stumblers on 4th Avenue. But me, Nick Kelly, Ben Lewis, and Brett Riffey went to watch a movie at the Keith Albee. It was Bad Boys 2, based in Miami. The next day, we were going to go see Chris Crocker. You'll remember that name. Chris Crocker was playing. He was playing in Ohio. Was he playing for the Browns or? He's playing for the Browns.
Yeah.
Not the Bengals. It was the Browns. We were going to go see Chris Crocker because Ben Lewis and Chris Crocker were best friends. Right before two-a-day started before the season. But watching this movie, my loud ass spoke up and said, guys, why don't we just go to Miami? Forget Chris Crocker. Let's go party in Miami for 3 days before the season starts. We left the movie early, got in our car, went home, packed a bag, and drove to Miami. And in Miami, I saw a bartender juggling bottles. And I've always been just the nerdiest guy on the planet. And I'm like, I want to learn how to do this. And he gave me a website to buy a DVD, and I obsessed over it. And in 2007, I went to Universal Studios. It's on YouTube. I went to Universal Studios and placed second in the world as a flair bartender. And being a flair bartender got me more tips. Like people would be like, oh, this is cool. And instead of giving me $1, they give me $2 because they're seeing it. You went from being someone that just gives drinks to someone that's putting on a show.
Right.
And then I was like, well, this is getting boring. Like, I feel like I'm showing off. You know what I mean? Like, I'm standing behind a bar practicing juggling bottles, and it's getting boring. And I saw a magician in Columbus at Easton Shopping Center. And after he did he was a street performer. And after he got done, I said, man, I tipped him. I said, man, I'm a bartender. Do you think I could do card tricks to make more tips? He's like, dude, people all over the world do it. Well, not people all over the world in West Virginia.
Right.
So I was kind of like, and of course, I think a lot of people are just like, kids don't think out of the box like they used to. So and it was the best place to practice. I was in a bar with people that wanted to have fun. And and it's just like my middle school kids, the best place to practice. Middle school kids are the hardest kids in the world to fool because they're middle school kids, so I literally will have a trick that I want to learn, go to the school and practice it to middle school kids. And they'll tell me what they see, what they don't see. And they enjoy helping me. And then I take it to do for a conference of adults. But yeah, the bartending was a huge deal. And before my phone dies again, just to give you a little insight of what my day was, the bar opened at 9 o'clock. I bartended 6 nights a week because it goes back to that. If I'm not bartending every night, someone else is going to bartend. I don't want to lose my shift because I was making $2,000 a week cash.
Sure.
Opened the bar at 9 o'clock. I got off work at 3:30. I walked upstairs. I lived above the bar, so I'd go to sleep about 4:30. I'd have practice at 6:30, so I slept 2 hours. After practice, I'd go to campus. I'd go to wherever my classroom was, and I'd sleep in the hallway. And the other students knew that I was a football player, so they'd wake me up when it was time to go into the classroom. And then sometime during the day, I'd have to go make a liquor order and a beer order to go run and pick it up and then go to practice. And then it was on repeat. And I think more, and that's the conversation tomorrow with my neurologist, the strokes are happening more because of lack of sleep than they are head. Like the head trauma was there, but the lack of sleep didn't help my brain heal any.
Sure. Yeah.
I average probably 3-4 hours of sleep at best. And I wish that I could go back and give myself a true chance to be a true healthy athlete, but honestly, right now sitting here, being a bartender led to so many things. Like my little ignorant ass from Inez, Kentucky, like I do magic at the Greenbrier to doctors, like I get asked to be keynote speakers at conferences. Like, give me a break. Like it like what you said, and you've learned it. If you can do something to feed your soul and give you enough joy, it beats a paycheck. It truly beats a paycheck. And I'm just lucky enough that I do this and I get a paycheck.
Yeah.
The people that I meet, the kids that I meet, like it's just unbelievable.
Yeah, it's really nice. It's a really rewarding experience. It's great that you can make money while you're doing it too.
Right. Oh, absolutely.
But I want you to do one thing before we get out of here. But I'm going to tell you this: when I end the recording, I don't want you to go anywhere because this is not going to end. But the recording is going to end. I want you to do me one more thing before we leave. I want you to drive home that website, the social medias. I want everybody to absolutely 100% be focused on what you're saying so that they can find you on all of these platforms.
I appreciate that. My website's joeystepp.com.
It's JoeyStepp.com. On every social media platform, I'm Joey Stepp Magic. And then if you just Google me, if you Google Joey Stepp, my website will come up. My website gives you access to anything. If you're a viewer and you've got a 10-year-old kid that wants to learn how to do magic, send me a text, send me an email. There's YouTube links. Don't buy magic kits; they're too expensive and too hard. If you're a business that needs someone to come in and you need a team building atmosphere that your people can laugh and have fun, I've got something for you. My passion, if you're a football coach, a basketball coach, a golf coach, my passion is when I retire from the school system, I want to go on a tour where I'm doing my show and speaking to athletes. And that show's called No Plays Off, and we talk about not taking plays off on the field, in the classroom, or in the community. That's my passion, and that's the 10-year plan.
Wow. Well, at least you got a plan. I like the plan.
Got a plan.
Like the retirement plan is to continue to work. I don't know what that's. I don't know how that, but it somehow fits with the theme of this episode and the theme of the tour. No plays off. So why would I retire and take it easy, right?
Right. Absolutely.
Guys, I am KD Hudnall. That is Joey Stepp, and this is Inside the Thunder. We'll see you on the next episode. Later.